What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for clicking on this video if you're new here. So today I'm going to be reading an article by Vanity Fair that is about Meghan and Harry. They're on the February 2025 cover, so I'm just going to read all of it. It's called Inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's Big Business Ambitions, 5 years after their royal exit. Ensconced in their cozy Montecito mansion, the Sussexes are living the American dream. By all accounts, the love is real, but their foray into moguldom has not always been a smooth ride. By Anna Peel, January 17th, 2025. Cover story, February 2025 issue. The house proved it. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex could have it all. Their Montecito home offered the fresh promises of a 21st century California mansion and the cloistering of a gated neighborhood from which they could emerge on their own terms. In the house's 13 fireplaces, described as mostly centuries-old examples brought over from France, there was even some European history stripped of any potentially uncomfortable context. At $14.65 million for more than 18,000 square feet, half the current median price per square foot in Montecito Rockbridge was a steal. The oligarch owner's romantic relationship had deteriorated to the point where he was compelled to offload far below market value, according to a source with knowledge, and the property seemed just right for the Duke and Duchess, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. It was the perfect launchpad for Archwell, their non-profit and entertainment studio, an approximation of a part noblesse oblige, part aspiring independently wealthy mogul model Elizabeth, Charles, and William rejected by fiat during the January 2020 Sandringham Summit. This January marks 5 years since that failed parlay. Leaving the royal family has brought tests for the couple: legal, financial, reputational, personal, and practical. Going from divinely chosen, or at least chosen by someone else who was divinely chosen, members of a 1,200-year-old institution to startup founders in exile is a tough adjustment. But there has also been opportunity. Over many months, Vanity Fair spoke with dozens of people who've worked with and lived alongside the couple to understand the impact they've had on their new coastal California community, the challenges of enacting the ambitions of two first-time CEOs, and how their experience with the monarchy foreshadowed some of their current difficulties. Harry and Meghan declined to be interviewed for this article. Harry still works closely with the charities he founded, the Invictus Games Foundation and Santa Bale. He has real gravitas when he speaks about his work in Africa, says someone inside the couple circle. And he's free from Willie, as well as the future king's supposed domination over in that continent, as Harry confessed in his 2023 memoir, Spare. Africa was his thing, Harry said. Archwell also encompasses Meghan's efforts to empower and educate young women, like the 40 by 40 initiative, where for her 40th birthday she asked 40 well-known friends, such as Melissa McCarthy and then First Lady of Canada, Sophie Trudeau, to each spend 40 minutes on Zoom mentoring a woman returning to the workplace in the wake of the pandemic. On March 14th of last year, the 4th anniversary of their flight to California, Meghan rejoined Instagram to announce American Riviera Orchard, a home goods and sundries line. The Sussexes have announced Meghan's second podcast, though not the title nor the premise of it. Archwell Productions also recently produced two high-profile Netflix series, a docuseries called Polo, which premiered December 10th and features the world of Harry's buddy Nacho, and the reality show With Love Meghan. The latter is a hospitality endeavor that, according to Netflix promotional language, reimagines the genre of lifestyle programming, blending practical how-tos and candid conversation with friends, new and old. 3 days before her show's scheduled premiere date of January 15th, Meghan announced that the series would be pushed to March 4th as we focus on the needs of those impacted by the wildfires in my home state of California. The couple has been volunteering amid the crisis in Los Angeles and donating to people displaced by the fires, as well as taking in friends who have had to evacuate their own homes. They have this naivety and their hopefulness about what's possible in terms of storytelling and good works and all those things, says producer Jane Marie, who collaborated with the couple while they developed audio projects at Archwell and later produced a podcast with Michelle Obama. I wish I had that kind of optimism. Optimism abounded as the couple embarked on their Spotify deal in 2020, both for them and for those who were coming in to help do the work. I thought that I had the role of a lifetime, says a person who worked in the media projects, who was a fan going in and eager to make the type of life-changing content Harry and Meghan seemed to want to create. I thought I was going to be besties with Meghan and Harry, and we were going to run around the world saving people. Interest in the couple was unslackable, but it remained to be seen whether they were actually interesting beyond Harry's uniquely difficult upbringing and Meghan's years of defending herself from shoddy treatment and racism, whether in the British press or from members of her husband's family. As one former Spotify employee put it, the thing you're escaping is the reason you're compelling. Those stories would be meted out in different media. Breathless reports of a $20 million Penguin Random House contract for Spare and $100 million partnership with Netflix According to a representative for Netflix, we don't disclose our financial deals with talent, but I can confirm you on the record that the $100 million figure is not correct. On the August 2022 cover of The Cut, Meghan did to promote her first and only Spotify podcast, Archetypes. She said, I'm like so excited to talk. And it's like I'm not finding my voice. I've had a voice for a long time, but being able to use it. When repeatedly asked by the interviewer what she wanted to say with her newly free voice, Meghan demurred, I have a lot to say until I don't. Do you like that? Sometimes, as they say, the silent part is still part of the song, she said, noting, I've never had to sign anything that restricts me from talking. I can talk about my whole experience and make a choice not to. One of the people who spoke with Vanity Fair for this story says they signed a non-disclosure agreement to be employed by Harry and Meghan. A person who worked closely with the couple and loves them says, I have no idea what Harry's interests are beyond polo. No clue what his inner life is like. The development process was challenging. The former Spotify employee says they had this idea to do a podcast because they knew celebrities did them. A category differentiated between celebrities who get a lot of money to begin podcasting, like Harry and Meghan, and celebrities who get large deals after proving themselves to be capable podcasters, like Smartless's Will Arnett, Sean Hayes, and Jason Bateman. The former Spotify employee says that Harry and Meghan didn't do what celebrities do on podcasts, which is turn on the mic and talk. They wanted a big theme that would explain the world, but they had no ideas. Someone who worked closely with them on audio projects disputes this version, lamenting that because of Harry and Meghan's insistence on silence from employees and their own reticence, the public doesn't know about good projects that had to be abandoned for practical reasons. It feels like the only story is they didn't satisfy the contract, she says. It's not like work wasn't being done. As time passed, it would be nearly 2 years between the couple's deal being signed and the premiere of Archetypes. Spotify began applying pressure to produce something, anything, that people might listen to. People involved with production say the couple did some trial runs on some big ideas, like a This American Lifestyle show, where Harry and Meghan took turns and talking to interesting civilian guests. As Bloomberg reported, Harry wanted to host a series where he interviewed powerful men with complicated stories like Mark Zuckerberg, Vladimir Putin, and Donald Trump. The concept wasn't just that men share challenging early lives, it's that their experiences made them into sociopaths, or so Harry envisioned. One person familiar with the ideation process says, in brackets, it says, the person who worked in media confirms that there was a sociopath podcast. The person who worked closely with the couple on audio projects recalls Harry saying, I have very bad childhood trauma. Obviously, my mother was essentially M-worded. What is it about me that didn't make me one of these bad guys? To implore a season's worth of world-famous sociopaths to talk about how they developed sociopathy would be what is referred to in access journalism as a booking challenge. As time passed, it would be nearly 2 years between the couple's deal signing and the premiere of Archetypes. The former Spotify employee says that Harry came to the Los Angeles office and asked for a cup of cocoa. There was none in the office, so employees scrambled to obtain some. An idea was pitched to Harry. What if he reviewed a hot chocolate every week while chatting with a different friend? Which he and his team considered and rejected. Another concept was that Harry would fix something every week, ranging from a flat tire to global warming. He wanted to do a podcast about disabled people who compete in the Invictus Games, the former Spotify employee says, but there's no crossover between the audience who would listen to that and people who want to hear about Harry's life. Harry and Meghan did produce a 2023 Spotify docuseries called Heart of Invictus, which significantly underperformed Harry and Meghan, the documentary. The former Spotify employee says it was challenging to engage Harry, and the person who interviewed for a job with the couple says, I just felt like he didn't want to be there doing that at this time. My expectation was charming receiving line, and it was clear he wasn't that person, at least that day, and at least in the context of a hiring manager. A person who worked on an event during Harry's book tour says, he has the greatest manners I've ever seen, hands down. Like, I can't believe his knees are as supple as they are. He was getting up and down anytime someone walked into the room. He was unfailingly kind and friendly to everyone. During the interview, the potential employee says Harry's attitude was either, well, why should I do this, or why are we doing this? The interviewee says they wondered, didn't Spotify pay you a lot of money to do this? The person inside the couple circle says he looks like the kind of guy who would, frankly, happily work for charities for the rest of his life and would be very happy if Meghan made all the money and he didn't need to. On his self-titled podcast, Bill Simmons described his own experience working with the Sussexes at Spotify. The effing grifters. That's the podcast we should have launched with them, Simmons says. I've got to get drunk one night and tell the story of the Zoom I had with Harry to try and help him with this podcast idea. It's one of my best stories. F them, the grifters. Harry and Meghan became increasingly nervous about how their content would impact them. Marie says, I can say that they had really great ideas for shows, interesting pitches, interesting guests. But them as the deliverers, or either of them as the hosts of these more edgy kind of ideas, would have been like, they would have had to move again. I think it's a combination of self-censorship for good reason and the corporate powers that run podcasting that don't know what it is to create valuable shows. In combination, those things make it really hard to make good stuff. The person who worked in the media projects imitates the thought process behind any decision about the couple's projects. Well, he has a million things that he has to protect, and he has the book, and they have the documentary, and they don't want to make the queen upset, and their public image, dot, dot, dot. That source said the idea for archetypes came from another employee, not Meghan, though the employee didn't own any of the intellectual property. Archetypes began production in January 2021. Though the former Spotify employee says the initial expectation was that Archwell would handle production for the series, the process took so long that Spotify's studio Gimlet was called in. A source familiar with the production of Archetypes says this required additional cost and resources from Spotify, though a current Spotify employee refutes that the extra support was a burden. Virtually the entire Gimlet team would be laid off in the year following Archetypes' release, but employees blame mismanagement at Spotify rather than any individual project. The former Spotify source says Archetypes was complicated as a podcast concept. You had to explain what the archetype was, then why the woman embodied it, but also how it wasn't true about her. Every episode was like, this is my friend who's been called that archetype, but is not that archetype. These archetypes, actually stereotypes, included the diva, the bimbo. As for those friends, quote unquote, there was an expectation that Meghan would be able to use her personal Rolodex to book the show, the way hosts like Simmons and the Pod Save America guys do. The person who worked in media projects says the assumption was Meghan's going to be on the phone with the Pope tomorrow. The former Spotify employee says that in addition to Taylor Swift, they heard rumors that Beyonce and Megan Thee Stallion were asked to come on the show and declined. Other people who worked on the podcast say they also heard those names mentioned, though a source close to the situation said Megan Thee Stallion's team knew nothing about any request. According to the source in media projects, Meghan would agree to provocative ideas and then walk them back. In one episode, she actually wanted to say the B word, because as the source remembers Meghan saying, you hear it all the time. And it ended up with Meghan calling it the B word. In an episode entitled SLUT, I can't say that on YouTube, sorry, intended to center how trans women's sexuality is being used against them, was retitled Human Being by Meghan, and had to be completely reimagined late in production. Every episode got more and more watered down and further away from the actual conversation, the source said. It felt very like Women's and Gender Studies 101 taught in 2003. Though the Spotify contract has widely been reported as worth $20 million, true sources told Vanity Fair such deals are generally not paid out in lump sums. In other words, the couple would not likely have received the full amount without meeting benchmarks beyond making one 12-episode season of a podcast. Spotify does not comment on deal terms. The issues extended into the actual workplace. Terry Wood, an executive vice president at Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Studios, was brought in to be what Meghan would later call her right hand when Archetypes won a People's Choice Award in 2022. The source familiar with the production of Archetypes describes Wood's anger, saying that she yelled at Spotify staffers when Meghan changed her mind about episodes. Wood did not respond to Vanity Fair's request for comment. The source who worked in media production says Meghan's own relationships with employees tended to follow a familiar pattern. She would be warm and effusive at the beginning, engendering an atmosphere of professional camaraderie. When something went poorly, often due to Meghan and Harry's own demands, such as a teaser for Archetypes being released 5 months before the show premiered and before there was any tape to promote, Meghan would become cold and withholding toward the person she perceived as responsible. The source says it was really, really, really awful, very painful, because she's constantly playing checkers. I'm not even going to say chess, but she's just very aware of where everybody is on her board. And when you're not in, you're to be thrown to the wolves at any given moment. In practice, they say that manifested as undermining. It's talking behind your back. It's gnawing at your sense of self. Really like Mean Girls teenager. Marie had a different experience with Meghan. She's just a lovely, genuine person, she said. The person who worked in media projects read stories in the tabloids about Meghan bullying palace aides and couldn't imagine such behavior actually happened. After working with her, though, this person realized, oh, any given Tuesday this happened. While it beggars belief that Meghan actually shouted at a palace aide, as has been reported, a person who interacted with her professionally says, you can be yelled at even if somebody doesn't raise her voice. It's funny that people don't differentiate between the energy of being yelled at and literally somebody screaming at you. Two sources say a colleague with us at Archetypes took a leave of absence after working on 3 episodes, then left Gimlet altogether. Several others described taking extended breaks from work to escape scrutiny exiting their job, or undergoing long-term therapy after working with Meghan. The person who interacted professionally with her says, I think if Meghan acknowledged her own shortcomings or personal contributions to situations rather than staying trapped in a victim narrative, her perception might be better. They added, with the salty laugh of a pleb rendering judgment on the Duchess of Sussex, but who am I to criticize Meghan Markle? She's doing great. It's hard to imagine how someone who seems so earnestly intent on being kind and engaging in world improving, if also brand building, activities could wind up engaging in revanchism with people so below her status. A partial answer may be found in an episode of Archetypes in which Meghan interviews Mindy Kaling, who assumed Meghan was popular as a child. While attending Immaculate Heart Catholic School in Los Angeles, Meghan tells Kaling, I never had anyone to sit with at lunch. I was always a little bit of a loner and really shy and didn't know where I fit in. And so I was like, okay, well, then I'll become the president of the multicultural club and the president of the sophomore class and the president of this and French club. And by doing that, I had meetings at lunchtime, so I didn't have to worry about who I would sit with or what I would do because I'm always so busy. It brings to mind Taylor Swift's Mastermind lyrics. No one wanted to play with me as a little kid, so I've been scheming like a criminal ever since to make them love me and to make it seem effortless. In other words, Meghan was a good person trying to do good things in spite of, and at times because of, unkind people. The person familiar with the production of Archetypes says that at least one employee who had a terrible experience got a handwritten thank you note and a gift from Meghan. Is it any surprise that a sense of victimhood and righteousness could continue to exist in a person who had been treated so horribly by the press and her husband's family? Not to mention those little B words at Immaculate Heart. That person whom Meghan may have perceived as enemies or interlopers, members of the loathsome media or insiders at the palace or people who actually knew how to make a podcast or her pitiable father or half-sister selling her secrets and history to tabloids for cash might have seemed more powerful than her in some way, despite her immense fame and privilege. And then whatever happened to them? They shouldn't have gotten between Meghan and her good work. As Harry knows, trauma can warp your perspective. Okay, they talk about Spare, but I don't care. I'm going to just skip that part. Harry didn't go to the Duke of Westminster's wedding. And then I'm just going to come back in here because there's start talking about William. Of course, there's also Willie. The source says that after invitations were sent out, Harry and the Duke of Westminster, sorry, I cannot pronounce the guy's last name, I'm so sorry. Grosvenor, sorry. I'll just call him the Duke of Westminster. Had a conversation. Vanity Fair has also reported that Harry may not have formally been invited. The source says they discussed Harry's discomfort at the thought of being remired in the familial claustrophobia of Windsor turf. It suddenly becomes all about the brothers, and did they look at each other, and how close were they stood, the source says, which is exactly what happened at King Charles's coronation and their uncle Lord Robert Fellow's funeral in August. You can imagine the scrutiny by the press. The source says they miss Harry, or at least the person they pretended he was in the papers. I think with a lot of the reporters, they like the version of Harry that they helped create, they say, describing how they would reminisce about when Harry would come over and pal around with them. Yes, but he also, when you left, would make fun of you all behind your backs and hated you guys. But who is the real Harry, now that he's been released from the zoo in which he was raised? By one telling, the person who interacted professionally with Meghan says he's socially marooned beyond his nuclear family. She was upfront about the fact that Harry hadn't made many friends yet, the source says of Meghan's assessment of her husband. The person who worked in media projects with the couple also has a guess. I think Harry doesn't know what he wants because he grew up in a fishbowl, and so he doesn't know what real life really is, they say. I think he probably wants to be left alone and be able to go kiss babies every once in a while, but not have to worry about money. I don't think he wants to be famous the way Meghan wants to be famous. Harry and Meghan are, in the estimation of everyone Vanity Fair spoke with, deeply in love. They're so hot for each other. The person who worked closely with them said, like, you know how when you meet those couples where you're like, the way they're looking at each other right now, I probably shouldn't be here right now? When Harry's solo, the person inside the couple circle says he's very personable. He's at ease with people, quite like Diana. He has this way of like making people feel very comfortable. When he's in public with Meghan, there's a circus, the source says. He's so protective of her because people are so nasty to her. It's a whole different experience. I'm gonna just skip them talking about Harry. Like, it's getting very annoying. Like, it's so annoying. Alright, okay. While Harry is vigilant about Meghan's safety, the person who worked closely with them says Meghan's role in their dynamic is a caregiver and facilitator. She's the one who makes things happen. Pre-Meghan, says the person familiar with the couple, Harry would just pop into the palace press office, ask a few questions, and leave, like he was a little bored, but also very keen. It's almost impossible to imagine today's Harry willingly engaging with the media in search of purpose. The source who worked with Harry and Meghan says, I can picture him meeting Meghan and being just a deep breath of like, I've been so exhausted, and you make everything so easy. I don't want to be like, oh, it's an Opedius thing or whatever, but it kind of feels like she's reparenting him in a way. It's easy to imagine a folie à deux emerging from the singular blend of circumstances, a need to believe in each other and the primacy of their relationship in the face of shared trauma and real obstacles they encountered as they idealistically endeavored to break the wheel, while occasionally breaking the spirits of those tasked with executing their shared vision. You don't tell them no, the person who worked in the couple's media project said. I left because I couldn't live with myself anymore. This intra-couple permission to stray from other people's realities may have led to some of the points of contention that people bring up when questioning Meghan's fidelity to emotional truth above literal truth. Her assertions that she neither Googled Harry nor looked up the etiquette for meeting the Queen of England, and that she didn't know she was supposed to curtsy until the ride is over. Meghan is the type of woman who would check out a menu online before going to a restaurant to pick what she was going to eat, says Tom Fitzgerald, a fashion and cultural commentator who, with his husband Lorenzo Marquez, comprised the brand of Tom and Lorenzo. A resident of Montecito who ate lunch in the same restaurant as Meghan said the server told her that Meghan had called ahead to ask about the privacy of the seating arrangement. So the idea that she didn't know she was supposed to curtsy for the Queen, I just didn't find it particularly believable, because based on everything she ever told us about herself, I can't imagine that she went into the meeting with the royal family completely cold with no research whatsoever. Fitzgerald also points to Meghan's repeated claims that she was forced to wear neutrals during her time in the palace in order to avoid upstaging the Queen or competing with her and other senior members, noting that Meghan's wardrobe is now completely composed of that palette. A royal reporter believes that Meghan assumed her husband's vision rather than researching the job of being a royal, and the reporter has a more positive view of the folly. Oh, that's such a good idea for a successful marriage, the reporter says. It's a terrible idea for a job, but if you're joining this big network of people, you've got to see this through your husband's eyes, be your husband's advocate about it, and it's no wonder this relationship works, even if the family business fell apart. It's a charming Freudian dynamic. A husband and wife who organize each other's lives and well-being, who flirt and hold hands and want the world to be a better place, even to the exclusion of evidence that suggests that their well-meaning way of disrupting institutions is not always the best approach. That instinct to do things as Harry and Meghan believe they should be done, rather than how they're typically accomplished, was exacerbated during their time as senior working royals. It led to conflict with Harry's family and palace staff, the reporter says, because Harry doesn't understand himself. He doesn't understand the monarchy. His family didn't do a very good job of inculcating him into the family legend, particularly because he didn't care, particularly because he was kind of abandoned at the age of 8. Okay, no, he wasn't. What the hell are they talking about? But anyways, okay, then now they're talking about Colombia and, okay, I'll just say this. When they appear together in non-invictus circumstances, that's when people are like, I'm not really clear what they're representing here. That's contrasted with an actual royal tour, when individuals are acting on behalf of the sovereignty, or an individual actor like Angelina Jolie, who went places like Afghanistan and Ukraine with the backing of the UN agency. The Netflix docuseries Harry and Meghan litigates in painstaking detail Harry and Meghan's mental health declines, as she was bullied, at very least in sight of, and by many accounts at behest of, an imperialist establishment. Yet this doesn't seem to sour them to the idea of participating in a hereditary bloodline. In the doc, Harry says that their last week as working senior royals, the couple, ruining out the circumstances of their exit, kept telling each other, we could have carried on doing this for the rest of our lives. When Charles ascended the throne after Elizabeth's passing, the couple's children became Prince Archie and Princess Lily. Some people familiar with the production of Archetypes and Harry's book tour said they were instructed to address the couple as sir or ma'am, though the request was dropped in one instance after the person pushed back. Other people say they were encouraged by Harry and Meghan to call them by their first names. I think ultimately it's cachet and sets them apart as different and special, the source familiar with the couple says. In the US, success, money, fame, all of that stuff exists out here, but a blood title is few and far between. Many members of Meghan's current inner circle are basically living by the rules of American aristocracy. They stay behind the scenes, wield their power quietly, and look down on people who are very public and too thirsty. On the other hand, all of them are slated to appear on With Love Meghan. Okay, now they're talking about this whole Princess Michael of Kent Blackamoor brooch. The couple is mad that they weren't tapped as an asset when William went to Jamaica. Okay, well, they already left the family. Okay. The source, I'm skipping like paragraphs because it was just nonsense. But the source, who's also a person of color, defends Meghan's rights to want a piece of the empire for herself. If I was in the same position and I was treated the way I was by the institution, it wouldn't stop me from still feeling that that title is mine and deserved. If anything, it would feel like you're giving into the pressure to exclude you in the first place. So actually, it would make me want it even more. Damn well, I'm gonna slap it on my kids' names too. Okay, I just have to pause. This article is so freaking long. I get it that this is a cover story, but I did not expect this article to be like I'm reading like the book of Psalms. Like it is so long. Oh my God, what is this person even talking about? So you mean to tell me that, all right, this institution is the R word and they made you want to unalive yourself, and you're gonna be like, yeah, I am the Duchess, and what, and yeah, I am the Duchess, and my kids are a prince and a princess. Yeah, how can you? How do you want the empire for yourself when you literally were married for 18 months and then you left and you're like, I want the empire for myself. What did you? A year worth of showing up and shaking hands doesn't entitle you to the empire. What are you talking about? Could you see King Edward leaving Her Majesty the Queen's, what is it, her uncle? King Edward leaving the monarchy and then being like, yeah, well, I'm still the king. By the way, I'm going back to, yeah, I'm the king. Did you know I'm the king? I'm still the king. Bro, you abdicated. You literally left. Harry and Meghan literally quit. How are you a manager and you quit your job and you're like, oh, but I want a company car. I'm going to keep the company laptop. I'm keeping my badge. I still want access. What are you talking about? This person is so embarrassing. Okay. All right. I'm so tired, guys. Of this article is draining me because it's naming all of these celebrities. There's so many celebrities that they name. Oh my gosh. Okay, there's a bunch of them. I'm just gonna name like three: Natalie Portman, Leonardo DiCaprio, Oprah. Okay, that's it. There's too many people. There's like 10 of them. Are among the many celebrities who've peacefully coexisted with other locals in Montecito. When a Montecitans labradoodle ran up to a child and licked their ice cream, the kid's father, Kardashian affiliate Scott Disick, ran up to the pet owner with concern, not because he was upset that the cone was ruined, but to reassure the person that the ice cream was vegan and wouldn't upset the dog's stomach. Okay. Anyways, I think everyone, including the A-list celebs, would prefer that it's not on the map like it is, the Montecitan says. It's a place where no one would even bother a famous person beyond saying hello at the coffee shop, as they would to anyone else. One resident says that Montecito's defining characteristics are quiet and neighborless. The prince and the quote-unquote starlet, as the Montecitan calls her, have become local villains, according to several people who spoke with Vanity Fair. They attribute the increase in housing prices to them as Ellen DeGeneres, and point to out-of-towners coming in, driving too fast, and taking up all of the street parking by local trails, like the one Meghan was photographed hiking on when Harry was in the UK for Charles's coronation. You can't just walk into Lucky's for dinner anymore. While the Montecitan says that neither he or his friends have ever met the couple, two others mentioned Harry biking in town. They popped up in the video for DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi's vow renewal, and the Montecitan saw photos of Harry playing polo at a nearby field, which will be featured in Harry and Meghan's Netflix series. Meghan's project was filmed at a house near theirs. American Riviera Orchard, which on Instagram has a logo style with a royal-looking crest and written in Meghan's perfect calligraphy and is internally known as RAO, is located in Montecito. An 1898 book published by the Southern Pacific Company Rail Line states, the Montecito is known as the American Riviera. Today that honor is understood to belong to Santa Barbara. No one Vanity Fair spoke with has ever heard Montecito referred to by the name. It's kind of hucksterism, one resident says. It's just finding every way she can monetize something. And in doing so, bringing more attention to the place where the Sussexes say they want to be left alone. I still think they're the most entitled, disingenuous people on the planet, the Montecitan says. They moved away from England to get away from the scrutiny of the press. All they do is try to get press in the United States. Louise says that the most common criticism she hears about Meghan, though she notes it's true of Harry as well, is you can't cherry pick the good parts and leave out the bad parts of fame. However, she points out, all celebrities do this. Don't take photos of me. Oh, but here, let me step out conveniently and get papped. Only give me good reviews of my movie or my album. And if you don't like my music, I'm going to post on Instagram that you're so SHITTY as a reviewer. Whether ARO will be well received or received at all, at least in name, remains to be seen. And then it talks about the patent problems, substance on the brand. Louise says Meghan's first lifestyle effort, The TIG, was popular in Louise City in Circle in Toronto while Meghan was filming Suits there. However, American Riviera Orchard to me is giving 2014. It's not giving 2024, she says. Fame arrests you at the moment it arrives. And I wonder if that is your health and wellness lifestyle version of that, where she had to suspend the TIG and quit the moment she became Harry's girlfriend, then fiance, then his wife. American Riviera Orchard is probably picking up where the TIG left off. The source familiar with the couple says, I think there's one thing that no one could take away from Meghan is how hard she works, how much effort goes into everything that she does. That is so funny to me. I'm sorry, guys. Ultimately, that's all she needs. And I think that's why American Riviera will probably be a massive success. Even in 2 years, what? Even if in 2 years' time it doesn't exist anymore and she's on to the next, it'll have that moment. There's no way you can say that it wasn't successful. The source familiar with the couple says that Meghan's metabolism for campaigns, that she can move on from archetypes, the 40 by 40 mentorship program, the forthcoming lifestyle line and show, and the wisp of a possible book about divorce that may never happen, are part of why she's better suited to celebrity outside the palace. The roles don't work like that, she said. The source says. How many years has Kate been talking about the early childhood development? Like 11 now, 12? We still haven't really seen anything. Princess Catherine launched Shaping Us, a campaign that focused on increasing public understanding of the crucial importance of the first 5 years of a child's life. Wow, this person is really rude because Catherine has cancer. You know, she took some time away from her projects to work on that. Hello. In that time, Meghan has gone from star of a syndicated cable TV series to paradigm-changing princess to her husband's conduit out of royal life to the founder of a hybrid charity Hollywood startup. She's earned as much faith in her own force of will as a sovereign might have gone from believing that they were anointed by God to lead. As for what she'll do with that power, look at what it means for her to make the world a better place, which she and Harry genuinely seem to want to do. Jamila Jamil, Chrissy Teigen, and Omid Scobie, oh my god, the other Finding Freedom and Endgame, have all publicly discussed Meghan unexpectedly reaching out during difficult times. You want to make the world a better place, but you're reaching out to celebrities, not regular people? Okay, anyways. Louis sees it as something Meghan took from her royal years. 18 months. 18 months. 18 months, people. 72 days. Oh my god. Alright, that's what they do. They bless you with their royalness, and that's the gift. It's not like Princess Diana was ever best friends with the people that she visited in the hospital. Oh my god, what is wrong with these people? Good lord. I think they don't know what change the world means, says the person who worked in media projects. They want to be people who are looked at as people who want to change the world. Maybe that's why Meghan has continued on Nick News, in the TIG, on panels and archetypes in Colombia in August to bring up the dish soap story. Okay. Procter & Gamble declined many requests from Vanity Fair to confirm that Meghan was the impetus for the switch. And in 2021, the company partnered with Archwell with the goal of elevating the voices of adolescent girls to ensure their point of view and lived experience is heard at the tables of where decisions are made. Blah, blah, blah. 30 years later, she continues to speak about having spoken up about it, suggests it's the kind of mission she aspires to. Marie, who's worked with many celebrities, says of the Sussex aspirations, I think it's actually better than where most people start out. To point out the modesty of that world bettering feels like contributing to the essential problem of Harry and Meghan. No matter what they do, they just can't win. If, I guess, you don't count the overwhelming portion of their beautiful lives that exist outside of Daily Mail headlines and blog comment sections. If Harry's burden is the soft oppression of no expectations, Meghan's might be the opposite, the betrayal of not living up to an unachievable ideal. I think the whole world was waiting for her to be that person, and she never jumped. The source who worked in the media says, Diana walked amongst landmines. Meghan couldn't even say the word slut. And that's where the article ends. That was extremely long. I haven't read the Vanity Fair in a long time. Maybe all the articles are very, very long, but I literally feel like I just read like the book of Genesis and I'm so exhausted. I think there was a lot of snark, but it's one of those read between the line things and to pick up on certain things, but I don't have the mental wherewithal at this moment after reading all that and having to skip through certain paragraphs because it was just too much to even break down what my interpretation of the article was. But I like the last line where it says Diana walked amongst landmines and Meghan couldn't even say the word SLUT because Meghan has a Betty Crocker sort of image that she's trying to build for herself. Like, oh, I'm some wholesome Disney princess, and how could I say the B word? And I'm only not saying the B word because I can't say it on YouTube, right? And monetize this video. I can't say the B word like she's some Disney princess in a forest singing to birds. And, you know, Harry says she was singing to the dolphins and the dolphins were singing to her or whatever. And that's how he knew that they were supposed to be together. But so she's crafted this odd Disney princess, you know, image for herself. And she just can't be real. She's not a real, like, she's literally not a real person. she's a caricature, and I think she's very much stuck in like a early 90s, 80s just vibe of like, I'm this neat, put in a box Barbie. Everybody should like me because I try to like everybody. But again, behind the scenes, it's she's a dictator in high heels. So that's just the reality. Is that's her image is crumbling, and it's 2025. We're not in the time where you can be some cookie cutter perfect. Nobody likes a Betty, like a goody two shoes sort of look at me, I'm perfect. Oh, I just like everybody. Oh, here's some fresh cookies. People are like, what are you hiding? Literally, what are you hiding? And I'm going to say it. I think President Trump is a person who brought out the realness in a lot of people, because people before that were very much PR agency. You have to be perfect, be in a box. But like even in the Barbie movie, Barbie was like, wait a minute, like she had like an awakening and was like, oh, we can't all be perfect all the time. That's not real, and she's a doll. But yeah, guys, let me know what you thought about this article. Thank you guys so much for watching this. I know this was a long one, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, goodbye.